All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wild Reef. My name is Becca, and I'm an aquarist here in this Wild Reef area of the aquarium. So lots of tropical saltwater, but more specifically and excitingly, the sharks. So if you guys are joining us today, we are going to be doing a zebra shark training session. So you'll get to see the zebra sharks feed. Yeah, it's going to be pretty fun. So come along and hang out with us. Again, my name is Becca, and we're here at Wild Reef. We're going to get started and talk a little bit about what you're going to see, why we do it, and how we do it here at the aquarium. So there are 2 zebra sharks in the exhibit, and every species of sharks, so not just the zebra sharks, but also the sandbar sharks we have, the black-tip sharks, and then our shark rays, so our sawfish and our white-spotted guitarfish, are all target trained. And you might think training a shark, that's crazy. You can train sharks? Absolutely. With positive reinforcement and anything, you can really train almost anything. And it helps these animals participate in their own care, helps us monitor their diet, all kinds of different things. So how do we train these sharks? It's very simple. This is what we're calling their target. I also sometimes call it their name tag. So for the zebra sharks, this is kind of squiggly, multicolor, kind of S symbol that hangs over the edge of the water. And when we put that in the water, that means that it's kind of like a name card or a place card, if you will, for dinner time for the zebra sharks. It lets them know where to come and that it's time for them to eat there. We also pair that with an audio cue, so we have a clicker, and that obviously makes a noise for the zebra sharks to look around for, so that they can start to know to look for their target in the water and come over to us. The zebra sharks also have an extra step. So for our sandbar sharks and our black-tip reef sharks, they kind of cruise by and take the food as they go. For the zebra sharks, we have this added step, which is this target buoy. So Lisa's with me here today, and you'll see her feeding the zebra sharks in just a little bit. And she'll be putting this in the water and having the zebra sharks touch their noses to it and follow it around. And this has so many great applications. We can direct the sharks to go in a certain place and helps us differentiate who's eating in that particular moment, and really helps us get down to the fine details of what they're eating, which is a good transition into what they're eating today. So zebra sharks are also not your typical Hollywood shark, as we call it. They don't have those pointy, grabbing teeth like our sandbar sharks or the black-tip sharks might have. They have teeth that are more designed for crushing. And when you see them come and eat, you might even hear their suction. They're really good at kind of sucking in their food. So that means they eat a whole variety of things, not just fish, but also different invertebrates and things like that. So we have squid, or as some of you might be familiar with it, calamari. This is all restaurant quality seafood that we give our animals as sustainably as we can source it. So some good calamari. They also get clam, which is a bit of a different thing than you might see our other sharks eat. A nice invertebrate, something that they would swim around on the bottom and suck out of the sand. And then they also have some delicious salmon. Again, restaurant quality, looks pretty yummy. So that's what they'll be eating today. And again, for those of you joining us, my name is Becca. We're here in Wild Reef, and we are going to be starting to feed our zebra sharks. So here you'll see Lise is stuffing the squid with vitamins and any medicine if we ever have to be giving our animals medicine. So she's hiding those vitamins in there. You might think sharks are kind of these mindless eaters, but they're actually very discerning. They can be very smart. So not only are they participating in this target training, but sometimes they can figure out that there's a vitamin in there and they don't want it and they'll spit it out. So that's why Lise was stuffing it in there. So the reason that they can come up and eat individually with this training is super awesome. We're able to make sure that each of them are getting their vitamins like that. And we're also keeping track of exactly how much food each shark is getting besides their vitamins. So this is the clipboard that Lise will be writing on here, where each of those food items I showed you, we have their amount down, and she'll be writing how much each shark gets. Really important. We have excellent records of how much they're eating, what they're eating, all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, Lisa's going to go ahead and get started and start feeding our zebra sharks. If you guys are ever available on weekends, we do have virtual shark feeding tours where you'll see more than just our zebra sharks eat. Those sandbar sharks and black-tip sharks I was talking about are also fed for those tours, which is pretty cool. So you saw Lise hang that target over in the water. She made that audio cue, which is just that clicker. And she's got her target buoy in the water as well. And this is a good moment to mention that these are animals, and they do have their own choice Sometimes they come up right away, sometimes they don't. We're not forcing them to do anything. We're just asking them to participate in this training session. So it looks like we have both Vera and Eli swimming up right now. So that is Vera, our female, that Lisa's feeding right now. And you can kind of hear and see that suction way of eating that they have. That's pretty unique for zebra sharks and other nurse sharks and things like that. And you can also see how they can follow that target buoy. They stick their nose on it. That one that just ate there was Eli. He is our male in this exhibit. Fun thing about Eli is he likes to take a piece and kind of swim around and do a lap while he chews and considers his meal. He likes to really enjoy it. So he just went off for a lap. Meanwhile, Vera is here going, give me, give me, give me. What else can I eat? And you'll see Lise has her following that buoy around really nicely. And you can obviously see how useful that could be. If we ever have to take a look at a particular part of their body, or even just checking their body condition in general, having them follow that buoy around is really, really helpful. Because again, we can kind of get a look at all of them everywhere, see how their personality is, how interested they are in the food, and it lets us keep a really close track of their health. You also might notice Lisa's writing down each of those food items she's given these animals so that we know exactly what they're eating. We do have a goal amount that we're aiming for each shark. It comes out to about 2 to 3% of their body weight per week. And the zebra sharks are one of the only sharks in here that actually eat every day. And you'll see Lise giving Vera a little boop on her snoot, if you will. Again, you might think of sharks as these kind of mindless eaters, crazy eating machines, kind of vicious things, but here's a species of shark who's very chill, wants to hang out at this training session. She's clearly having a good time, and even is willingly accepting boops on the nose. And again, that can help us with animal vet procedures if we have to, or they get used to us handling them and touching them, so it's not a scary experience for them. And again, this is Eli, our male, and as you can see, he is the one who likes to take his piece and swim off and chew and really, really enjoy his food, I would say. These guys are also really easy to tell apart when they were coming by. Eli is much paler than Vera is, so when they're together, it's very easy to tell. And when Vera comes by again, she has these 2 freckles under her eye that I think are very obvious and easy to tell them apart. So the zebra sharks are great because their spots really help differentiate who they are, since we are able to tell all of these sharks apart as individuals. And you might be thinking, Becca, you're calling them zebra sharks, but they have spots. We can talk about that a little bit later, but they are essentially born with stripes, and that's why they're called zebra sharks. So here's Vera. She's got her 2 freckles right under her eye there. Super easy to see who she is. And she's taking her food and hanging out with Lise. Again, we're not forcing them to do anything. She just wants to be here and hang out, which is super awesome. And they're able, I think I mentioned a little earlier, they're able to follow that buoy around. This is a species of shark that can sit on the bottom and keep breathing. They do what's called buccal pumping. They basically have a special anatomy that allows them to keep pumping water over their gills manually by themselves. You might have heard that sharks need to keep swimming to breathe, and that is true for some species. So the black-tipped reef sharks and the sandbar sharks we have in this exhibit are species that need to keep swimming to breathe. There's kind of a sandbar shark at the edge of your screen there. And they actually are moving water over their gills with the motion of them swimming forward through the water. So they do need to keep swimming. But that's not true for the zebra sharks, and that's why you see them following that buoy and kind of sitting at this station and even sitting long enough for us to kind of touch their noses or have them follow the buoy around. And like I said, it looks like Lise is waiting for Eli to come back for his last piece. He likes to really enjoy his food, do a couple laps of the exhibit before he comes back. And it looks like here he is right now. So again, Eli is the only male in this exhibit. It's another good way to tell them apart. And he's off to consider that piece of salmon he just ate and how good he thinks it is. So they're just about finishing up here. Again, if you guys are joining us, my name is Becca. We just fed some zebra sharks here in Wild Reef. We are waiting for Eli to come back and get another piece. I can talk, again, I said I would touch more on this, and I can. Zebra sharks are called zebra sharks because as they are young, when they're born, they have stripes like a zebra. And as they get older, they kind of grow out of that, and that has to do with how they camouflage. And there we go. Looks like Eli just got his last piece of clam. He got a little tactile reinforcement there, and he's swimming off. And that's it. That's our zebra sharks being fed. If you guys are, again, if you're available on the weekends, we do have our virtual shark feeding tours in which you get to see more than just the zebra sharks eat. You see our sawfish eat and sandbars or blacktip sharks eat, so you're guaranteed more of a shark experience. And an underwater experience, which is honestly pretty cool. So yeah, we're going to come over here. We can talk a little bit about the zebra sharks you just saw and their reproduction. So here at Shed, we are actually a huge contributor to conservation of zebra sharks in zoos and aquariums. One of our sharks who lives here, her name is Cleo, has had over 100 of her offspring that are living in other zoos and aquariums across the world. AZA, other AZA institutions, and that stands for the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. So yeah, other credible institutions. So that way we've been able to study their reproduction so much, learn so much from them, and we don't have to rely on populations in the wild because we're able to repopulate that ourselves here. And eventually, hopefully one day, our research here will help contribute to populations in the wild. Since zebra sharks are now considered an endangered species, their habitat, they're suffering from habitat loss. They're losing habitat to the point where they weren't really being worried about it, and now they are an endangered species. So really important that we learn from them and are hopefully able to contribute to more of these conservation. I want to say situations, it's not the word I'm looking for. So I have here some zebra shark eggs. These are actually from the zebra shark you just saw eating, Vera. She was that darker female. So kind of maybe not what you would expect a shark egg to look like. Sometimes you might hear some things like this called mermaid's purse or something like that. And they kind of will find a nice safe place on corals or mangrove branches and lay these in the water. And you see all these, this kind of, it looks like hair, right? This crazy stuff that's kind of hanging down. These are just their tendrils, and they're actually, you can kind of see them even sticking to my fingers. They're really sticky, and they can kind of wrap that around whatever coral branch or mangrove branch, wherever they lay these eggs, so that they stay where they put them. And then this kind of color, this kind of look, they're actually kind of hard to see even in this exhibit. And I'll show you, when we collect these eggs, what we do, it's called candling them. And we just kind of hold a flashlight behind it so that you can kind of see through it a little bit that way. These eggs are not fertile, so we're not seeing anything. Sometimes, just like some other animals, the sharks will lay an egg even if it's not fertile or there's nothing in there. So these are really good for this purpose, for a prop for you guys to kind of see how we do that. When the zebra sharks lay these eggs, it takes about 5 to 6 months for them to incubate before a little zebra shark will pop out. And again, so I said I would talk more about this, talking more again. When they pop out of these eggs after about 5 or 6 months, it depends on the temperature of the water, which is pretty cool. They look like little zebras. They're absolutely adorable. And they're black and white striped. And once they get a little older, those colors kind of stretch out and they start to grow in those spots and those paler colors that we see. So when the zebra sharks are young and they're living more in the shallow coral areas, maybe mangrove areas, those kind of stripes help them blend in better with the water there. But as they get older and they're branching out more to a little bit more open ocean, a little bit larger coral reef, those kind of spotty, sandy colors help them a little more. And like I said, mangrove and coral areas, those are some of the most threatened habitats in our oceans right now. So that is why it's really important that we are doing what we can to study these sharks and support their conservation in any way we can. So trying to do our part here. And yeah, that's kind of a lot of zebra shark information, but if you guys want some more, please let me know if there are any questions, and we can get talking about those.
So Nancy asked, can you overfeed a shark?
Yes, Nancy asked if we can overfeed a shark. You absolutely can. Sometimes they will look larger than they should. We call that overconditioned. But again, sharks aren't really mindless eaters. In our experience, especially at the aquarium, we have found that the sharks tend to kind of stop eating when they're full, and they'll kind of what we call self-regulate themselves. So it can happen, and they definitely can get a little overconditioned, but that's another reason for our training sessions too, that we're monitoring how much they're getting, making sure it's an appropriate amount for them.
And then Dawn asked, do sharks ever eat other fish in the habitat?
Yeah, Dawn asked if sharks ever eat other fish in the habitat. Similar answer. Sharks are not mindless eating machines. And they do participate in these training sessions. So they know food is coming from us, and they're satiated from those training sessions. So they don't have to worry about trying to hunt down any fish in the habitat. I also like to touch on the fact that sharks are really important to ecosystems. So they usually only eat injured fish or dying fish, something that's easier for them to catch. Sharks are really efficient creatures. They're not going to expend more energy than they have to. So we keep an eye on all of our fish in this habitat, and they're all as healthy as they can be. So again, the sharks are going to expend energy to try to hunt down any of those guys.
And then Julie asked, were any of the sharks here born at Shed, or did they mostly come from other places?
Yeah, great question. Julie asked if any of the sharks were born here at Shed. Actually, a lot of them were, which is very cool. So I'll start with our original collection. When this exhibit opened in about 2001, I believe, those animals, 2003, thank you. These animals came from other aquariums or collected in other places. But since then, some of our zebra sharks have been born here, and actually every black-tip reef shark on exhibit right now, except one of them, who is their mom, were born here, which is super, super cool. Also in other parts of the aquarium, we have bonnet head sharks, and those also have a very successful breeding program going on, which is kind of a species it's kind of new for us to be doing that, which is very cool. I will also touch on and say that the black-tip reef sharks are cool because they give birth to live mini versions of the adults. They're called they're live bearers. So I just showed you all of these eggs for sharks, but not all sharks lay eggs. Some give birth to live little sharks. Some sharks actually have an egg that kind of hatches and is reabsorbed inside the mom, and then they still give birth to a live shark. So sharks have all kinds of reproduction options.
And then one last question. Elaine asked, how many species of sharks are at Shed?
Yeah, Elaine asked how many species of shark are at Shed. And there's something like 15 or 20 different species, sounds about right. I have a cheat sheet back there I'm trying to look at, but it's a lot. Here in Wild Reef we have, 35 different species of sharks here in the whole aquarium. I was going to say about Shed, here in Wild Reef we have a good portion of that.
Sorry, that's total number, 35 total number.
35 total individual sharks. It's probably closer to 12 species. Yeah, 11, 12 species of sharks. Sorry, we're confusing our little fact sheets over here. I will tell you in Wild Reef we have about 5 or 6 in this exhibit. And then there's bamboo sharks and cat sharks in Wild Reef that we also take care of here. And then throughout the other galleries in the aquarium, there's those 11 or 12 species. And one more question?
Yeah,
One more question.
Susan asked, what is the biggest shark here at Shed?
Yeah, Susan asked the biggest shark here. The biggest shark, like Hollywood shark that you're thinking of, it's probably our sandbar sharks. They get about 7 feet, 200-ish pounds, which you can also see on the virtual shark feeding tours if you ever come on the weekends. But the largest shark ray species we have, so sharks fall into a big category called elasmobranchs, and those are cartilaginous fish. So that includes stingrays, skates, sharks, the zebra sharks that you just saw. And so the biggest elasmobranch that we have is Ginsu, our green sawfish. She is almost 14 feet long, almost 400 pounds. She's absolutely incredible. And again, she is an animal you can see on our virtual shark feeding tours on the weekend. And she is just the most incredible animal. So also, if you can come to the aquarium, we are open. Stop by and see her in person. She is absolutely worth it. The largest fish. All right, and that's it. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you at the aquarium.